spent over 3 decades as a chef on one of the world's largest cruise ships. After retiring, I've often found myself reliving the extraordinary experiences I had at sea. Some were delightful, others thrilling, but one particular incident has haunted me for years, defying all logic and reason. It's a story I often hesitate to tell, but somehow sharing it makes it feel more real, like I wasn't imagining it all. It was a warm summer evening, the kind that makes the sea shimmer under the moonlight. We were somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic, halfway through a 14-day luxury cruise. Our ship, the Ocean's Majesty, was a marvel of modern engineering, boasting amenities that could rival a 5-star hotel. We were miles from any land, surrounded only by the vast, endless expanse of water. Dinner service had just ended, and I was cleaning up in the galley, enjoying the quiet that followed the storm of hungry passengers. The crew was relaxed, anticipating a smooth night. That's when we received it, the distress signal. It came through on the emergency channel, a series of urgent beeps, followed by a crackling voice. "Mayday, Mayday! This is the SS Harbinger. We are taking on water and need immediate assistance." The message was clear and frantic, the kind of distress call that sends chills down your spine. Captain Rogers, a seasoned sailor with decades of experience, was immediately notified. He ordered a change of course towards the given coordinates, about 20 nautical miles east of our position. Protocol demanded we respond to such calls, and none of us questioned it. Lives were at stake, after all. As we made our way through the night, the atmosphere on the ship shifted. The usual laughter and music from the deck faded into silence. Passengers were advised of a detour, but details were kept vague to avoid panic. The crew, however, was on high alert, bracing for what we might find. The ocean was eerily calm, the only sound being the gentle hum of the ship's engines cutting through the water. I remember standing on the deck, looking out into the darkness, trying to spot any sign of the distressed vessel. But there was nothing, just endless black water and the distant glow of stars. An hour passed, then 2, and still no sign of the SS Harbinger. We were nearing the coordinates, yet the sea remained empty. The distress calls continued intermittently, each more desperate than the last, urging us to hurry. Finally, we reached the coordinates. Captain Rogers ordered a searchlight scan of the area, illuminating the night in brief, blinding flashes. But the ocean revealed nothing, no ship, no debris, not even a hint of disturbance. It was as if the sea had swallowed the SS Harbinger whole. The captain, perplexed and uneasy, tried to establish radio contact, but there was no response. The distress calls ceased, leaving only an unsettling silence. It was as if the ship had vanished into thin air. We lingered in the area for a while longer, hoping for any sign or signal. But the sea remained silent and empty. Confused and on edge, we eventually resumed our original course. The passengers, oblivious to the full story, returned to their usual activities, while the crew exchanged uneasy glances and whispered theories. Back in the galley, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. What had we encountered out there? A prank? A ghost ship? None of it made sense. The following day, during a break, I shared the strange experience with some of my colleagues. To my surprise, the chief engineer, a grizzled veteran named Tom, had a theory. He told us about a ship that had sunk in that very region decades ago, a cargo ship named the SS Harbinger. It had gone down in a violent storm, taking its crew with it. I felt a chill run down my spine. Could it be possible? Was it just a coincidence, or were we being haunted by the past? The thought seemed absurd, yet strangely plausible given what we had experienced. Determined to find answers, I spent the next few days digging through old logs and archives in the ship's library, piecing together the tragic story of the SS Harbinger. According to records, the ship had indeed sunk in a storm, its distress signals lost to the raging elements. No one had been able to reach them in time. As I read through the accounts, I couldn't shake the feeling that history had somehow repeated itself, that the phantom calls we received were echoes of that long-lost tragedy. It was a thought both terrifying and fascinating, a mystery that would remain unsolved. To this day, I wonder if the sea holds on to its secrets, replaying moments of tragedy for those who dare to listen. Was it a supernatural occurrence or just a bizarre coincidence? I may never know. But every time I think back to that night, I feel a shiver of unease, a reminder of the mysteries that lie beneath the waves. In the days following the incident, whispers among the crew grew louder. Some believed it was a ghost ship, forever doomed to wander the seas, seeking help that would never come. Others speculated it was some form of time anomaly, a ripple in reality where the past momentarily touched the present. I remember one particular evening, when the captain called a meeting with the senior crew members. He was determined to find a logical explanation, something that would quell the growing unease among us. We gathered in his cabin, a dimly lit room lined with nautical charts and navigational equipment. Captain Rogers spread out the map on the table, pointing to the coordinates where we had received the distress signal. "This is where we picked up the call," he said, tapping the map with his finger. "And this," he continued, shifting to another point nearby, "is where the SS Harbinger sank." The proximity of the two locations was uncanny. The captain looked around the room, his eyes settling on each of us. "I don't believe in ghosts or time anomalies," he said firmly, "but I can't deny the strangeness of this situation." Tom, the chief engineer, spoke up. "Maybe it's some sort of atmospheric phenomenon," he suggested. "Radio waves bouncing around in the atmosphere, creating echoes from the past. Or perhaps there's a shipwreck down there, and someone managed to send a signal," another crew member offered. The captain nodded, considering these possibilities. "Whatever it is, we need to document everything. I want detailed reports from each of you about that night." For the next few days, we all wrote our accounts, trying to capture every detail of the experience. I spent hours in the galley, jotting down my thoughts between meal preparations, reliving the night over and over in my mind. As the voyage continued, the memory of the distress call gradually faded into the background. We had other responsibilities to attend to, other ports to visit, and soon the incident became just another sea story, shared in hushed tones among the crew. But even now, years later, I can't help but feel a lingering unease when I think about that night. The ocean is vast and mysterious, and perhaps there are things out there that defy explanation. In the quiet moments when I'm alone with my thoughts, I sometimes imagine the SS Harbinger still out there, drifting through the fog, eternally calling for help that will never arrive. And I wonder if, somewhere in the depths, the sea holds on to its secrets, whispering them to those who are willing to listen. Perhaps the ocean is alive in its own way, a keeper of stories and memories that occasionally resurface, reminding us of the fragility of our existence. Or maybe it's simply a vast, indifferent expanse where coincidences and mysteries abound. I'm not much of a writer, and I have never kept a journal before, but what I saw out there on the high seas isn't leaving my mind. I'm hoping putting it down on paper will help me get it out of my head. We were about a week into our journey, transporting goods across the Atlantic on the cargo ship Blue Horizon. I'd been a sailor for nearly 2 decades, but what happened on that trip was like nothing I'd ever seen or heard before. It was late afternoon when I first spotted them. We were somewhere between the Azores and Bermuda, miles from any coast. The sea was calm, the sky clear, a perfect day for sailing. As I scanned the horizon from the bridge, my binoculars caught sight of something unusual, a small boat, just a speck in the vast ocean. I focused the lenses, and there they were. 5 figures huddled together on that little boat. At first, I thought they were just some unlucky souls stranded out there, but the closer we got, the more I could see. They were women, young, pretty, and waving like their lives depended on it. The captain, a gritty old seaman named Joe, squinted out at them. "Looks like they need help," he muttered. We hadn't seen another vessel in days, and seeing this small boat so far from land was peculiar, to say the least. But as sailors, we're bound by the code to help those in need. "Ahoy there, do you need assistance?" he called out. They nodded frantically, pointing at their boat and miming that it was sinking. It looked like a lifeboat, maybe from a cruise ship or a yacht. Still, something felt off to me, a gut feeling I couldn't shake. As we got closer, the women looked more relieved. They were waving and smiling, their faces bright with hope. They were dressed in simple clothes, wet from the sea spray, and their hair glistened in the sunlight like it was spun from gold. I could hear their voices now, calling for help and thanking us already. "Get the life jackets and the rescue lines," the captain ordered. The crew scrambled to get everything ready. Meanwhile, I kept my eyes on the women. Their boat bobbed up and down, looking more unstable with each passing minute. I watched them clutch each other, laughing and talking excitedly amongst themselves. It was like they knew they were saved. As we drew alongside, I couldn't help but feel an odd sense of calm emanating from them. Their voices were almost musical, a kind of melody that danced on the wind. It was soothing, and I found myself almost lulled into a sense of security. But there was that gnawing feeling in my gut again. The first mate, Tom, threw out a line. "Hold tight," he shouted. One by one, the women grabbed it, tying it to their small boat. We pulled them closer, intending to get them aboard our ship. They seemed grateful, their smiles wide and genuine. But as we got them alongside, something strange happened. I noticed that they all had identical features, perfectly symmetrical faces, the same piercing blue eyes, the same wide, inviting smiles. It struck me as odd, and I turned to the captain. "Do you see what I see?" I asked him quietly. He nodded, his face ashen. "Aye, lad, something ain't right." Just as we were about to lower the gangway, one of the women spoke, her voice clear and commanding. "Thank you for saving us," she said, her tone sweet and yet firm. "But we can't come aboard." We paused, confused. "What do you mean?" the captain asked. The woman who seemed to be their leader smiled again. "It's our boat," she explained. "We can't leave it." It made no sense, and the crew began to murmur, questioning their motives. Then in an instant the sea changed. The calm waters became choppy, waves rising as if from nowhere. The blue horizon rocked violently, and the women held onto their boat, steady and unfazed. "They're controlling it!" I yelled over the chaos. The realization hit us all at once. These weren't just stranded women. There was something unnatural about them. Their smiles never wavered, even as the wind howled and the sea churned around us. The captain barked orders, trying to steer us clear, but the waves pushed us toward them. It was as if the ocean itself was under their command, bending to their will. Their eyes locked onto ours, and I felt a pull, an urge to obey, to let go of all reason and jump into the sea. I fought against it, gripping the railing until my knuckles turned white. I could see my crewmates struggling too, their eyes glazing over as if in a trance. The captain, though, was stronger. He slammed his fist against the controls, forcing the ship to turn, breaking whatever hold the women had on us. "We need to get out of here," he shouted, his voice breaking the spell. The crew snapped back to reality, working together to steer us away from the siren's trap. But as we pulled away, I saw their faces change. Their beauty faded, replaced by something monstrous, something ancient. Their eyes were no longer blue but black as the depths of the ocean, and their smiles twisted into sneers. They watched us go, knowing they had failed, but still they held a strange, eerie grace. As we put distance between us and them, their small boat began to sink. They didn't panic or try to swim. Instead, they disappeared beneath the waves, still watching us with those unnerving eyes until the sea swallowed them whole. The ocean calmed as quickly as it had raged, leaving us all shaken and silent. We sailed on, leaving behind whatever those creatures were, and I knew we'd never speak of it again. Some things are better left unsaid, mysteries that the sea keeps hidden.